down the busy street, yeah, yeah, yeah. We're having breakfast with Bob. It's Aloha Friday, I'd say, down the busy street, yeah, yeah, yeah. We're having breakfast with Bob. Breakfast with Bob.
Poncho
Breakfast
Man!
with Bob.
We are presented by ES Sports Nutrition, Cliff Bar, Timex, La Roca, Tanya Porta, Rudy Project, and Slow Twitch. Mr. Jim Vance, master coach from Training Bible, author, and the guy we look to anytime we're trying to figure out stats for the Ironman. How you doing, Jimmy?
I'm doing great. It's
Awesome.
a great spot again.
Always a good spot. So we were talking on the radio show recently. You like to go out to mile 1 of the run, which is right across from 15K, and sort of look at that mile split from the pro and then the 15K split and get a sense of, are they pacing this thing appropriately or they go out too hard?
Yeah, in fact, you can pretty much see it. It's like right there,
Yeah.
right behind us, the marker. So I just always had an interest from my days in racing.
Yeah.
What my first mile was off the bike, I would tell people, and they were always just amazed. And I found that, I think in 2006 at Florida, I ran my first mile off the bike in like 5:40.
Right.
My first 4 miles in 23 minutes, 5:45 pace. So, people were floored to hear that, and I got the sense people don't really understand how fast athletes are going off the bike.
Yes.
And then, of course, I got smart and realized that was too fast. So I started really looking at the race and realizing I wasn't the only pro that was making mistakes like that, in my opinion. So I started just to kind of see what are they doing here in the race, and it's really been amazing and really telling. So what I do is I look at the 1 mile mark.
Yes.
And I have a friend back in San Diego who's at a computer named Ben. Thank you, Ben, for all your work. He sits there, and all I do is I take the total race time from the time of the start to what it is at mile 1. He's back at the command center in San Diego going through and comparing based upon the updates on Ironman.com to say, here's what that, do the math, and that's what the first mile.
And then you give them the time at 15K
and
for the
same
same person.
15K. And what we do is we extrapolate through 15K, what would that pace be per mile?
Right.
And so at first when I started doing this, I was looking at 1 mile only. And then I started realizing, well, I got the 15K just on the other side of the road. Why don't I just step over there and get that one too, since they're coming back to me? And then I could see the trend.
Right.
And how much they would lose. And it's really cool because a lot of years now I can kind of project what the, who's going to win or who's going to get second, third, fourth. And
based on that 15K mark last year in the first mile, if you were extrapolating out at that point, you would have thought who was going to win last year.
In the women's race, the winner was going to be Caroline Steffen. And Rinny was going to get second to her, and third was going to be Rife. And for some reason, Caroline just really struggled out on the Queen K. Now, she didn't have a ridiculous first mile, as I recall. So Caroline Steffen's first mile off the bike last year was 6:24.
Right.
But Rinny's was 6:02. To give you an idea, Sebastian Kienle was 6:11. So Rinny ran 9 seconds faster for the very first mile than the men's champion.
I wonder how much of that is, you've been, especially on this course, there is nobody out on that bike course, right, in terms of people. You get off the bike and all of a sudden there's thousands of people all over the place. And I just wonder how many people maybe run outside where they should be running just because of the crowds.
Oh, absolutely. I think people are so happy, number one, to be off their bike.
Oh, yes.
Number two, to see other people, hear the cheering, feel like, okay, I've executed well, things are going well here. I'm, especially at the front of the race where there's so much on the line. And that's why I think we're seeing so many athletes go a little too fast, go a little too hot. And it's not just, and people are thinking, well, how fast is too fast? Well, there's a few answers to that. Number one, they're starting this marathon not like you or I would start an open marathon at 6 or 7 in the morning.
Right.
They're starting it at noon in the heat on an island in the middle of the Pacific.
Right.
So that's a bit different. Number two, they've also just swam 2.4, ridden 112. Okay, and probably, in the men's race, that can be very volatile at the front.
Right.
So, or they've gone off the front, some of them, and really laid down a big effort to start this. So, and the first mile is not flat. The first thing they're going to do is they're going to come up Palani, and then they're going to be on Kuakini, and that's going to be flat, but then they're going to come downhill, and then they're going to kind of go through a
drive.
Ali'i. So it's taxing in a lot of ways. And what I'm finding is athletes that are faster than 5% of what they're, 5% of a pace that they can probably run for the first mile for their total are really paying the consequences.
So Rinny ran 6:02. What does her marathon translate out to? She ran a 2:50.
Well, geez, I didn't actually get that last year. I'd have to look. Well, 6-minute pace would be about 2:30 something.
Yes.
Yeah,
so she slowed up a little bit.
Yes.
But she was also 14 and a half down off the bike, so I'm sure there was a little bit of urgency to run fast.
And I think if you're Daniela Rife, you've got to look at that and be smart and say, I don't need to take the risk.
Right.
Let me put the pressure on Rinny.
Right.
Let me run smart early. Because Rife went out in 6:31, which is not ridiculous, but by 15K she was at 6:51 pace. So she was 20 seconds per mile slower by the time for the next 8 miles on average.
Yes.
So which means she actually was, even slower than that because we've averaged the difference out. So and at that point she was still projected to be second. Rinny was going to catch her.
Right.
So by the first 15K, Rife had blown the race. So to speak.
Interesting. Yeah.
She just went too hot. If she runs 7-minute pace,
if you run a 3-hour marathon,
she wins.
Rachel Joyce, there's a number of gals who would have potentially won the race running a 3-hour marathon.
Yes, and that's really the thing. Now, this is not to say that it's very, very hard to run a perfectly paced marathon.
Yeah.
I think probably the closest I've seen has been Bart Arnott's. I mean, that guy is
2:44, but he ran 2:50 last year and 2:44 the year before.
Yeah, but his first mile pace relative to his last mile pace, I think just a couple years ago, or total mile pace was 7 seconds differential. That is impressive.
Yes.
I don't know too many people that can hold back that much in such an instance. So it's really about understanding. Here's the other thing. That first mile, when they've been on their bike so much, the efficiency and energy costs of just biomechanically changing what you're doing from pedaling a bike to now a much more neurologically demanding movement of running. The body is not efficient in that first mile.
Right.
So now even the cost to run what would seem like a 6-minute mile when you're relatively fresh and warmed up is now even greater because you're very inefficient. You're still, the wobbly legs. We've all had it as triathletes.
Absolutely.
Coming off the bike and trying to find your legs. You feel like you're jelly. You can't get the motion down. That means it's actually you're working harder because you're sending energy in different directions. So
when I look back at the best men's marathon is still Mark Allen from the 2:40.04 going way back, 89. Why? Guys aren't going faster on the marathon. Are they punishing the bike so much?
I think the bike has changed.
Okay.
The bike, the speeds that we're seeing on the bike, the intensities, not to say that there was drafting back in the day, but certainly it's not. It's better policed now.
Okay.
So I'm not. I don't want to take anything away from Mark Allen. What he did was incredible. 2:40 fresh out here on this heat at that time of day would be difficult for even most of the pros. So I think the race dynamics have changed. The bike. I mean, ever since Norman Stadler raised the came here and raised the game and said, no, we're going to push the bike, and he proved that. And that forced other athletes to have to take the bike more seriously, not hold back, and so that's affected run times.
Everybody back in the day, people didn't have power meters; they didn't know what their watts were, and we've seen that on the bike for a long time now. And everybody knows, what wattage they want to push throughout the day. What we haven't seen in the past was a power meter for runners, and I know that's something you're working on a book about that. Talk a little bit about that because it's.
Sure.
That's an interesting concept.
Sure. So there's 2 products on the market right now, and they're both here at the Expo and Ironman. They're the Stride unit, which measures basically inertia. It's a sensor that you wear on your chest.
Right.
And judging how you move through space, understands based on your mass how much work that is.
Right.
And power is simply a work rate.
Right.
So that's how we get that. The other one is RPM squared, and there's a footbed, and it'll measure actually the force and the impact on the ground and how fast that force is, because that's all power is: force times speed. So 2 different approaches. Very cool information and data we're collecting. A lot of cyclists will come from cycling and we think more watts, more watts, more watts. The old German mentality, ride harder, more watts. It's not that way in running. It's entirely paradoxical because
being efficient.
It's about being efficient. So is more watts better? Absolutely. greater work rate you can hold, that's great. But it's more about what can you do for that work rate.
Right.
How efficient are you in running? There are athletes that have lower threshold watts that are faster than me.
Yes.
And vice versa. I'm bigger than some other guys, and their threshold watts are faster or higher than mine, but I'm still faster even though I'm bigger at a lower threshold. So it's amazing how that works. It's not even watt per kilo like it's been. So there's a lot to it. The technology is literally so new. We're still collecting data. I'm rolling out some new metrics here, and that I think Training Peaks and other analysis software companies will come out with that really. But the main point is going to be it's going to focus on the efficiency.
Yes.
And to bring it back to pacing in that first mile, if we can really look at what's the workload in that first mile, how much work is the athlete doing? My hope is to create a metric where athletes can actually look at a watch, so to speak, and know how efficient they're being for whatever pace. If they have an efficiency goal, I need to be at this efficiency.
Right.
So that way they can hopefully pace themselves better, not just here, but in any race, any triathlon or open.
A lot of people come here. You got the sports medicine conference going on. I mean, this is a great place to gather data, right? This is like the ultimate petri dish. You've got heat, you've got wind, you've got fatigue, you got the nutrition aspect. Is that one of the draws for coming to a place like this for a science guy like you?
Oh, sure. So, like, even this morning, I know Stride did a running event. It was myself and Crowe and Frank Jacobson with Stride, and athletes were out there running, testing it, and and then we even had some reporters there and from different publications wanting to get info and ask, okay, what is this? What is tell me how this works? Okay, I saw these numbers. What do they mean?
Yeah, because it's all new. This is new technology.
It's all new, and
if you look back at the history of triathlon, from the Aero helmet to the clip-in pedals to the Aero bars, triathlon has been the
innovator.
Totally innovator. A lot of the individual sports peoples aren't innovators, but when you start putting all three together, it seems like triathlon has always been the leader of the pack.
It is, and that's what makes it great to be here. That's one of the things I love about it, and and that's why I stand there on the road gathering data for the splits, because I think it's going to be exciting. And I think this year it's going to be even more exciting, because as I went through the start list, I don't know if you know this, Bob, but I can't think of a time in history where we have more previous top 5 finishers on a start line, men and women, than what we're seeing this year. So I think those little mistakes, those key moments in the race, who keeps their cool, who doesn't, it's going to play all the factor in
it's interesting, because
winner.
when you look at last year, second place to 8th place in the men's side, it was like 4.5 minutes. I mean, there's a lot of position changes. You're going from second. Frederick Van Leer was sitting in like second or third, had a bad stretch. Next thing you know, he's 8th.
Oh yeah.
So you make a minor mistake, have a little bit of a cramp, miss a food handoff, boom, you're in the hurt locker.
Oh, you can go from hero to zero very quickly. Hero to DNF.
Love it. Jimmy, always great to have you with us. Appreciate what you do.
Awesome.
Congrats.
Well,
and what, you had 2 new books coming out?
Yeah, the first one is from Human Kinetics, Triathlon 2.0, data-driven training for performance, and that's on using a power meter and some sort of GPS unit to guide yourself. Coach yourself to half Ironman and Ironman.
Right.
Kind of paying attention to the metrics, making clarity of the data based on your age, gender, and goals in the different times of year.
Right.
So allows athletes to be innovative. And then the second one's with VeloPress, and that's on running power meters, and both should be out late winter, early spring.
Love it. Jim Vance has been our guest. We are presented by ES Sports Nutrition, Cliff Bar, Timex, La Rocca, Tanya Pura, Rudy Project, Slow Twitch, Poncho Man. Take us out.
Down the busy street, yeah. It's breakfast with Bob. It's breakfast with Bob. It's breakfast with Bob.
Poncho Man. Yeah.